My wife told kids I don't love them. Kids found letters I wrote them and realized she's been lying always. My son's fork clinked against his plate like his hand had gone loose. He didn't look at the spaghetti. He didn't look at me. He stared at the table edge, eyes shiny, and said, so quietly I almost didn't catch it, Mommy, Aaron says you don't love us. The air in my apartment felt suddenly too thin. My daughter, across from him, went stiff, shoulders up, chin tucked. Like she'd been bracing for a hit. I could smell garlic and tomato sauce, hear the neighbor's bass through the wall, see the tiny smear of marinara on my son's cheek that he hadn't wiped yet, and none of it made sense with that sentence sitting in the middle of our dinner table. My throat tightened so fast I couldn't even swallow. What? I managed, and my voice sounded wrong, too high, too brittle. My daughter pushed her chair back a fraction, the legs squeaking, and she finally looked at me with this guarded, wounded expression that made my stomach drop. You left, she said. You didn't fight for us. So, maybe you don't. It was a Tuesday night, a regular custody night that was supposed to be mine, and it had already been weird from the second they walked in. They didn't run to me like they used to. They didn't drop their backpacks and start talking over each other about school. They moved through my doorway like guests who weren't sure if they were welcome, and I thought maybe they were tired. Maybe Aaron had kept them up too late again. Maybe it was just one of those phases where kids are moody and everything feels like a referendum on your parenting. I tried to keep things normal, shoes by the door, hands washed, dinner on the table, my stupid little rose and thorn game where everyone shares one good thing and one hard thing from the day. I was halfway through asking about my daughter's spelling test when my son dropped that line like a stone in a pond. I put my fork down because I didn't trust my hands not to shake. Hey, I said, and I leaned forward, elbows on the table, trying to keep my face soft even though my insides were screaming. Look at me, okay? I love you. I love you both. I have always loved you. My son's lower lip wobbled. My daughter's eyes narrowed like she was trying to catch me in a lie. That look. Like she was evaluating my love like evidence, hurt in a way I didn't have words for. My phone buzzed on the counter behind me, and when I glanced up I saw Aaron's name on the screen. Of course. My stomach flipped. It felt like she was in the room without being there. My daughter crossed her arms. Then why didn't you come home, she demanded, voice cracking. Why didn't you call more? Why do you miss stuff? Mommy, Aaron says you're busy with your new life. I couldn't breathe for a second. Honey, I said, and my voice shook anyway, I call. I text. I show up. I'm here right now. I reached for my son's hand, but he pulled it back like my touch might be dangerous. It wasn't dramatic, just a small recoil, but it hit me like a slap. The worst part was realizing this wasn't a one-time comment. This was a story they'd been hearing often enough that it had roots. I didn't yell. I didn't say Aaron's name like a curse. I did the thing every co-parenting book tells you to do when you're being quietly shredded. I stayed calm for the kids. I'm not going anywhere, I said, forcing my voice steady. If you ever feel confused, you can ask me. You don't have to guess. I will always tell you the truth. My daughter's eyes filled, but she blinked hard like she was trying to be brave. Mommy, Aaron says you lie, she whispered. That's when my son finally broke. He started crying in that silent, tight way kids do when they're trying not to. I don't want you to go again, he said, the words tumbling out. If you don't love us, just say it. I stood up so fast my chair scraped. My knees felt weak. I went around the table and knelt beside them, ignoring the spaghetti cooling, ignoring the phone buzzing again. Listen to me, I said, and my hands were gentle on their shoulders, even though my fingers were trembling. I love you. There is nothing you can do that will make me stop loving you. Nothing. Even if you're mad at me. Even if you don't want to talk to me. Even if you're confused. Okay? My daughter stared at my face like she was searching for a crack. Then she looked down at her lap and said, "Prove it." I wish I could say I had some perfect line ready. I didn't. I just sat there on the floor, my cheek near my son's hair, and felt something inside me harden into resolve while something else splintered into grief. Aaron and I were together for 12 years, married for 8. We met in our early 20s, the kind of love that feels like a forever plan, shared apartments, shared friends, shared dreams. We did IVF with my eggs, Aaron carried our first, I carried our second. We did the whole scrapbook life for a while. First steps, tiny shoes saved in boxes, framed hospital bracelets. When things were good, they were genuinely good. Aaron could be funny and warm, the mom who made pancakes shaped like animals and remembered every spirit day at school. When things weren't good, Aaron didn't fight loud. She fought strategic. The marriage started cracking after my second maternity leave. I went back to work full-time, exhausted, still trying to pump in a supply closet, still feeling like my body wasn't mine. Aaron started acting like my tiredness was a personal insult. She'd say, "You don't even look at me anymore," and I'd want to laugh because I barely looked at myself. Then she started keeping score, how much I worked, how little I prioritized the family, how I never chose us. She'd say those things in a soft voice that sounded reasonable, like she was the wounded one. And every time I tried to explain, she'd twist it, "So your job matters more than us." When I finally asked for a separation, I thought it would be painful but adult. I thought we'd do the hard thing and keep the kids out of it. Aaron cried, said she understood, asked me to stay in the guest room for the kids while we figured out logistics. 2 weeks later she told everyone I abandoned them. She told her sister I ran off. She told our kids I chose to leave. The word choice got used like a weapon. At first it was subtle. The kids would repeat little phrases that weren't theirs. "Mommy Aaron says you're too busy." "Mommy Aaron says you get tired of people." "Mommy Aaron says you don't like being a mom as much as she does." Each one was small enough that if I confronted Aaron, she could deny it and make me sound paranoid. And if I tried to correct it too strongly, the kids would get anxious like they were caught between two stories. Then it escalated. Aaron started forgetting to tell me about school events. She'd schedule dentist appointments on my custody days and tell the kids, "Your other mom didn't want to come." She'd block my number on my daughter's iPad and say she didn't know how that happened. Once, my son told me Aaron said I wasn't coming to his soccer game because Mommy Sophie doesn't care about soccer. I was standing right there on the sideline while he said it, like my presence was less real than Aaron's narrative. I started doing what you do when you're being slowly erased. I left proof. It began as a coping thing. When the kids were little, I used to write them notes in their lunchboxes, doodles, dumb jokes, "I love you, have a good day." After the separation, I started writing letters instead. Not to send, not to weaponize, just to hold on to the truth. I wrote one on my daughter's first day of 3rd grade. One when my son lost his first tooth. One on a night when my daughter slammed her bedroom door and told me she hated me, and I sat on my couch afterward shaking, because even though I knew kids say things, it didn't feel like just a kid thing. It felt like Aaron's voice wearing my kid's mouth. I wrote letters because I couldn't control what Aaron said in her house, but I could control what was true in mine. I kept them in a shoebox in my closet, labeled in marker, for later. I didn't plan to give them the letters until they were older, 18, maybe, or whenever they asked questions. The letters weren't dramatic. They were small and specific. "Today you made me laugh when you tried to say hippopotamus with a mouthful of cereal. You fell asleep on my shoulder in the car and your hair smelled like sunscreen. I'm proud of you for telling the truth even when it's hard. If anyone ever tells you I don't love you, I need you to know they're wrong." I didn't think the kids would find them. I didn't want them to, not yet. But 3 weeks after that awful spaghetti night, they did. It was a rainy Saturday on my weekend, one of those gray days where the sky sits low and everything feels muffled. The kids were supposed to be cleaning their room, mostly shoving toys into bins while I pretended it counted as organization. I was in the kitchen making grilled cheese when I heard my daughter call, "Mom? Can you come here?" Her voice sounded different. Not angry. Not guarded. Just strange. I walked into my bedroom and found them sitting on the floor with the shoebox between them. My son's cheeks were blotchy like he'd been crying. My daughter was holding a letter in both hands, the paper slightly crumpled from being gripped too tight. For a second, my stomach dropped because I thought something terrible had happened. Then my daughter looked up at me, eyes glossy, and said, "Did you write these?" My throat closed. "You weren't supposed to." I started, then stopped, because the guilt in her face wasn't about snooping. It was about something else. My son sniffed and wiped his nose on his sleeve. "You wrote one for when I started kindergarten," he whispered. "You said you were proud of me for being brave. Mommy Erin told me you didn't even want me." I sat down on the carpet so hard it almost hurt. "Yes," I said, voice thick. "I wrote them." My daughter held up the letter she'd been reading. "This is from last year," she said. It says you missed my choir concert because Erin told you it was on Thursday but it was really on Wednesday." Her voice broke on Erin's name like it tasted bad. "She said you didn't come because you didn't care." My son started crying again, louder this time. "She said you don't love us," he sobbed, and he crawled into my lap like he was 5 again instead of 8. "She said you're going to leave forever." I wrapped my arms around him and felt my own tears finally spill. Not dramatic sobbing, just that hot, involuntary kind that makes your nose burn. My daughter crawled closer too, still clutching the letter like it was a lifeline. She didn't apologize for reading them. She didn't need to. The letters had done what I wrote them for, they held my voice steady when everything else was trying to distort it. "I love you," I said into my son's hair, over and over, because it was the only sentence that mattered. "I love you. I love you. I love you." My daughter's voice was small. "Why would she say that?" she asked. "Why would she lie?" And that was the question I'd been dreading for months, because any answer that felt honest also felt like it would poison them. I didn't want them to hate Erin. Erin is still their mom. They still love her. And kids shouldn't have to carry adult betrayal like a backpack. So I told the truth in the gentlest shape I could. "Sometimes," I said, wiping my face with the back of my hand, "when people feel scared of losing someone, they try to control the story. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not your job to fix." My daughter stared at the letter, jaw tight. "So she wanted us to hate you," she said flatly. I hesitated, and that hesitation was probably answer enough. But I shook my head slightly and said, "I think she wanted you to stay close to her. And she didn't know how to do that without making me the bad guy." I swallowed hard. "That doesn't make it okay." My son pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes were red. "You really love us?" he asked, like he needed to hear it while looking at my face. "Yes," I said immediately. "Always." That afternoon, we sat on my bedroom floor with the shoebox between us, and they asked questions, messy, jagged questions. "Did you cry when you left? Did you miss us when we weren't here? Did you want to go?" And I answered carefully, honestly. I told them I left the marriage, not them. I told them grown-up relationships can end even when love exists, but parenting love doesn't end. I told them I've never stopped fighting for time with them, even when it's quiet fighting, paperwork and emails and showing up. When Erin found out the kids had read the letters, she called me screaming. She didn't ask what the kids were feeling. She didn't ask if they were okay. She said, "You manipulated them." She said, "You turned them against me." She said, "How dare you write propaganda?" I stayed calm on the phone, but my hands shook the whole time. "I wrote them for my kids," I said. "Not for you." Erin threatened court. She threatened to take my custody time. She threatened to tell everyone I was unstable. By the end of the call, I was sitting on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet, staring at the grout line like it could anchor me. And then, this is the part one didn't expect. HR at my job helped me anyway, because Aaron started calling my workplace. Not to threaten violence, just to try to embarrass me, to warn them about me. My manager, bless him, didn't treat it like gossip. He treated it like harassment. They documented everything. They connected me with resources. Within the same week, my lawyer filed an emergency motion about parental alienation. The words looked ugly on paper, but they matched what was happening. The court stuff is ongoing, and it's exhausting in a way that makes you feel hollow. But the emotional part, the part that mattered most to me in the quiet hours, shifted after the letters. Because the kids started testing reality again. My daughter started calling me from Aaron's house on the iPad when she could, not to report Aaron, not to spy, just to say, "Hi, Mom," like it used to be. My son started hugging me at exchanges again, not stiff and reluctant, but real. They still have moments where Aaron's story tries to stick. Kids don't unlearn something like that overnight, but now they also have my words in their hands, dated and specific, proof that my love wasn't something I invented later to look good. One night, a few days after the shoebox, my daughter left a folded piece of paper on my pillow. It was a letter back. Her handwriting was careful, like she was trying to be grown. It said, "I'm sorry I believed it. I was scared. I love you. Please don't stop writing." I sat on my bed and cried again, quieter this time, because relief has its own grief. Relief that they saw. Grief that they had to. I'm not naive. I know Erin will keep trying to control the narrative. That's who she is when she's hurt. But now the kids know to question it. Now they know love doesn't sound like a threat. Now they know if someone says, "Your other mom doesn't love you," they can come to me and ask instead of swallowing it alone. And I know some people will say I shouldn't have written the letters at all, that it's too much. But if you've ever been in a situation where someone is slowly convincing your kids you're a villain, you understand why you start leaving breadcrumbs of truth. You understand why you try to give your children something solid to hold when adults make everything slippery. Thanks for watching. If you've been through co-parenting lies, parental alienation, or that gut-wrenching moment where your child repeats something you know didn't come from them, share your story in the comments. I read them, and I know how lonely it feels until you realize other people have been there too.